Year 2011 was a very good year for the Middle East. It was a tremendous achievement for the Arab masses in rebelling and taking the uprising against very rotten and despotic regimes which have been sitting in power for the last 40 to 50 years as well. We've seen the struggle of the Tunisian people, we've seen the struggle of the Egyptian people, and we've seen the struggle of the Bahraini people and Libya and the entire Middle East. We know the situation in Iraq. In fact, the situation in Iraq and what's happened to Iraq and Afghanistan is a very good example why the West should not interfere in the Middle East as well. They created anarchy and destruction in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they have no right to claim that they support the struggle of the Middle Eastern people for human rights and democracy as well. We know from the past actually that their history is for intervention and for taking the Middle East in their domain, to use the oil wealth and to suppress the Arab masses. We know their history regarding the Palestinian struggle. We know their history regarding the Lebanese struggle. We know their history in supporting despotic regimes in the Middle East. And we have very good examples now about their double standards when they talk about human rights in Libya and elsewhere, while at the same time they ignore totally the struggle of the Bahraini people, for example, who've been waging glorious struggle against the despotic and antiquated regime in Bahrain as well. Two examples recently to show this double standard in its highest manifestations is when the Israeli army killed more than 20 peaceful protesters in the Golan Heights. Immediately the American issued a statement saying that Israel has the right to defend itself, and this is in defense of Israeli sovereignty. At the same time, the West is still arming and training the security forces in Bahrain to subjugate the Bahraini people and the young people in Bahrain to a new level of suppression. They wanted to remain in Iraq, and they want to suppress the Iraqi people's will for full independence and to get rid of the American occupation of Iraq. So this is important, a moment for the Middle Eastern people. It's an important moment for the people around the world, and to declare our solidarity with these people. We have a group of speakers today, distinguished group of speakers from Tunisia, from Bahrain, and from London, also who had commitment in the past in support of the struggle of the people in the Middle East. First of all, let me call on Fiona Edwards from the broad left group to address you first.
Thanks very much for the invitation to speak to you today. I think the first most important point to make is that the revolutions in Egypt and Tunisia are completely inspiring examples of people power. I think we should salute the millions of people that have risen up in the name of freedom, human dignity and social justice to oust Western-backed dictators, and in doing so strike a massive blow to imperialism. These revolutions are still progressing, and the people of Egypt and Tunisia have already achieved several really big victories. These revolutions have also strengthened the Palestinian resistance. The unity deal between Fatah and Hamas, facilitated by Egypt, is a welcome step forward, and the opening of the Rafah border to allow Palestinians to move more freely, whilst does not mark the end of the siege on Gaza completely, is an important step towards a free Gaza and the liberation of Palestine. As I said, these revolutions are a huge blow to imperialism. Mubarak and Ben Ali were brutal dictators backed by the West for many decades and used to serve Western interests in the region. So across the Middle East now we are seeing imperialism fighting back against the Arab Revolution. and the assault on Libya is at the cutting edge of this counter-revolutionary offensive. Britain is making a huge military contribution to these attacks, second only to the United States. Every single day since the 19th of March, Britain has been dropping bombs on Libya. Cruise missiles, bombers, attack helicopters, all against a small African country. Nothing to do with protecting innocent civilians, just destroying infrastructure, residential areas, and killing civilians. The West's intervention is inflaming a civil war, not helping to achieve a settlement. In fact, NATO opposes any possible compromise that could immediately end the fighting. And I think we must be very clear about the role of the Libyan rebels. Wherever their uprising started from, they have now been subordinated to imperialism, and there should be no support for a rebellion that is acting as the foot soldiers of imperialism. But that does not mean supporting Gaddafi. His regime is a repressive regime, a violent regime, all that is true. But imperialism getting control over Libya would be much worse. In the scale of things, imperialism is a far greater criminal enterprise than the criminality of Gaddafi. Gaddafi could not even approach the crimes imperialism is capable of, killing 2 million people in Vietnam, 1 million in Iraq, at least several 100,000 in Afghanistan, and dropping an atomic bomb on Japan. No good would ever come of the fact that mafia, imperialism, to deal with a local gangster, Gaddafi. The West is doing to Libya exactly the same as it has been doing to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. The United States, Britain, and France control 2/3 of the world's military power. This military power is now being directed towards a comparatively defenceless, developing African nation. And the leaders of Britain, France, and Britain have all explicitly stated that the purpose of the bombing is regime change. Under international law, war for regime change is illegal. And let's also be clear, the West intends to replace the Gaddafi regime in Libya with an even worse regime. The West is not interested in human rights, in democracy, in supporting freedom of the Libyan people. On the contrary, undermining, rolling back, and destroying the Arab Revolution is vital for the West because democracy in the Middle East will not produce pro-Western governments willing to sacrifice the dignity and living standards of hundreds of millions of people for the benefit of a tiny minority, the world's richest and most powerful people. So why is the West intervening in Libya? In my view, it's to exploit Libya's large oil reserves and to insert a client regime in between Tunisia and Egypt to assist the counter-revolution. And it is our duty as progressives in the imperialist country to campaign against our government's bombing of Libya and to organise and mobilise the broadest possible movement against this war.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Our next speaker is a person from Tunisia. We knew that the Tunisian uprising was the first in the Arab world in recent times. But however, it took some people by surprise, or at least they say so, but let me stress one important point. The uprising now we see in the Middle East is a culmination of 40, 50 years of struggle. And the people in the Middle East give its best sons and daughters in the past 40 years or so, struggling for democracy, for freedom, and for the respect of human rights. We here salute the young people who have undertaken these struggles and they were successful. But this is a continuation of the old struggle which many people in Iraq, in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Algeria, and other parts of the Middle East, including Lebanon and Syria, who sacrificed their life to achieve what we are at the moment. So we take this opportunity actually to salute these martyrs and to thank the young people in the Middle East for undertaking that task and completed what we, the older generation, undertook in the past. I'm pleased to welcome Kauthar Farjani, one of the activists for human rights in Tunisia, to speak here today.
I'd like to thank Stop the War Coalition for inviting me today. I think it's quite fitting that it's a 10-year anniversary of the war on terror, and I think that Arab Spring has actually exposed the biggest terrorists of our times, the two B words, Bush and Blair, and the governments that they represented, as well as France as well has shown its true colours. I think with regards to the Arab Spring, everyone is always seen as, oh, look at your dictators, you're very backwards, your countries are backwards, and you guys need to rise up. Well, we've risen up, and it's shown that the people that have been propping the dictators in the Middle East have been the very people that we vote for in this country. We vote for in America, France, Germany, and so on. And I think now people have been able to see that it's not our backward nations. In fact, our backward nations have been brave enough to oppress and say no. They've not only fought their dictators, their regime, but they've been fighting the West. And with our, pitiful economy and so-called lack of education, our people have managed to do that back home. And I think I, as a Tunisian and an Arab, and even basically just a human, I've been very, very proud at the bravery these people have shown. I'll briefly go into Tunisia because that's basically what I know about. Up until probably the day before Ben Ali left, France and Sarkozy in particular did pledge that they will help Ben Ali with security as much as he needed it. And that was right up until the day before. And now all of a sudden, France is a major champion of helping the rebel forces in Libya. I think they tried to make us forget that just 2 months back that they were willing to send their army, their forces, or help in any which way they can in a country that is, Tunisia is a sixth the size in population of France, yet we had more police than they did. We had more police per capita in the world, and yet they were willing to help even more with that regime, and all of a sudden they're willing to help the Libyan people. So I guess we know not to believe them and to know where their loyalties lie. One of the main things, I think Fiona has touched on it, and we need to also be reminded, and I have to say I was one of the people that did get excited when the no-fly zone was voted in. I did think, well, we won't have another Iraq, but at least Gaddafi would go. And we've seen their intentions. They're still there, they're still bombing people, they're still killing innocent people. They're killing people on both sides. And actually, right now, I think the victims have mostly been on the side of the resistance. And that has really highlighted to us. It's definitely made me feel embarrassed to get excited over the no-fly zone being voted in, and it's definitely woken us all up. I think having said that, just like Fiona has also mentioned, is even despite that, Gaddafi is still a repressive and brutal dictator that we need out of there, but at the hands of the Libyan people. And like we've seen with Iraq, yes, Saddam had killed 1 million people over the span of how many years? America managed to do that within a few years. So, and